Abraham, Kelly, welcome.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much for coming out here. How long did you have to drive? Which area of Houston are y'all from?
Oh, we're from Manville, so we had to drive like an hour.
Oh my gosh,
Katy.
thank you so much for coming out this far to, come and tell your story. What parish are y'all at over there?
Well, we just
It's a complicated
moved back.
question.
Yeah.
It is a very complicated
We just
question.
moved back from Fort Worth, so we are now bouncing. We're trying to find our home.
Yeah, and plus I travel so much every weekend, so like sometimes Kelly's going to mass on her own, or she's with me, and then we're going to mass wherever I'm like playing or working or whatever.
So, the parish I grew up in was Sacred Heart in Manville, so we tend to go there. But we also love St. Helens, so we go back and forth between Sacred Heart and St. Helens.
And then now we're adding St. Angela Merici in Missouri City into the mix. That's like kind of within the triangle as well, and that's where I grew up going as well. St. Angela Merici.
Are you both from the Houston area?
Yes.
Which parishes did you grow up in?
I grew up at Sacred Heart in Manville.
Okay.
My entire life. My parents were very active there, and my dad's now a deacon there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Still there, too.
Yeah, still
That's
there.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and then a few minutes down the road, Abraham.
Yeah, no, and then I grew up at St. Angela Merici, one of the next parishes down the road. It's like right on the deanery border, actually. So it's the start of another deanery right there, the two parishes. And we found out way after we met that we like grew up right next to each other, like 5-10 minutes away, had the same dentist growing up, didn't meet till we were adults, all that stuff. So
you didn't run into each other at the dentist office at all? No?
No, not that we're aware of. We're always waiting for like a childhood picture to have one of us in the background.
Oh, that would be so
and be
cool.
like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. But so far, no.
Yeah, I even went to the same high school as like one of her friends for my freshman year of high school. And it was like the same year, too, of crossover attendance. So there's a lot of things. Talk about God's timing.
So were your families really involved in your parishes growing up, or did it kind of grow, their involvement?
My family, yes, very much so. My mom helped with RCIA. My dad definitely was helping out before he discerned when I was 10 to join the diaconate program. And we were involved heavily in everything. So our weekends were there helping with whatever was going on. So yes, for my family, very much so.
Yeah. So I was the only one really in my family that was involved. We started out at St. Teresa's in Sugar Land, and then St. Angela Merici started getting started. So still a very young parish in the grand scheme of parishes, right? You have some of like your original parishes, your St. Elizabeth Ann Seton's, your St. Lawrence's, all very, very, very established, been there for 50 years plus. St. Angela Merici's been in existence for probably a little less than 20 years now. So it got started, and we moved from St. Teresa's to St. Angela, and my parents always went with the intention of getting really, really involved. And one thing my mom says now is that I just did it for her and my dad. And because once I got into high school and really started getting involved with youth ministry, and after my conversion and all of that stuff, I just wanted to live at the church. I wanted to eat, sleep, and do everything there at the parish, and just really be involved. And my parents were, they were involved driving me to everywhere, making sure I was getting to Steubenville's, wherever.
Because it's great when your faith grows with the church.
Yes.
Because I've noticed that with my son at St. Faustina, when he was young when the parish got established, and then like his spiritual growth at the same time as the parish, and ours as well, as my wife and I as a couple. Yeah, it's amazing when the church grows with you.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a beautiful thing.
Your youth minister, when you were growing up, she'll come to me and she's like, oh yeah, Abraham was like the one I could always count on, but also the one I was like, why are you here all the time?
Because I loved it, man. It was amazing. I was having so much fun playing dodgeball. Are you kidding me? Playing dodgeball and talking about Jesus. Let's go.
When you were growing up, did either of you think of any type of religious life?
Oh,
no.
Yeah, okay. So I was always so against it, and my youth minister was always like, man, I see you in friar robes as a Franciscan Steubenville grad, right? So very much loves the TORs. And I was like, I hate the idea of it. I hate the idea of it. I don't know. I've always desired to be a husband and a father.
Okay.
Always, always, always. My mom said that I was ready to have kids when I was like 5 years old and start my own family because I'm an only child. So I like love the movie Cheaper by the Dozen. I was like, I want that. I want to be surrounded by people, natural extrovert, right? So once, it's funny, I started discerning, air quotes, the priesthood. It was like 2 or 3 months, maybe, I started actually thinking about it and giving up like, okay, Lord, is this something you're calling me to? 2 or 3 months, and then I meet Kelly, and I'm like, it's all done.
It's like discernment out the window.
Yeah, discernment out the window, and I met my wife. We're good, man. We're good.
How about you, Kelly?
It was something that was always like in the back of my head. But I always knew that I wanted to be married and to have kids. But I had to give that whole, okay, I need to think about maybe religious life in a way that is going to allow God to speak to me instead of just blocking it off. But I don't think I ever did it in a way that was like I should have done it more and given it its dues, right? And so when we met and he was telling me about that, I'm like, okay, I didn't do that. I probably like prayed about it a couple times and I was like, no, I'm good.
So neither of y'all talked to a vocation director or anything like that?
I talked to Father Richard McNeely.
Okay.
He was my spiritual director for like, I'll say the Gen Z millennial term, a hot minute. He very, 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 like when I was in college, and then that made me talk to him about that. But it was like maybe 1 or 2 conversations, and I met Kelly, and every other conversation was about Kelly.
So what did you told him? Hey, I met a girl.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I didn't even get a chance to even start thinking about seminary. It wasn't even a thing. I was very young in my faith. We met when I was like 19, about to turn 20. So I was very like young and gun ho. I still am. I'm about to be 26 in like 2 weeks, but like, yeah, a lot of growth happened there.
What did he say? We've had him on the show a couple of times already. What did he say?
He kind of gave his like side smirk and like, man, yeah, no, she sounds great. Yeah.
That sounds just like him.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good invitation.
Yeah, he's a very mild-mannered guy, like very, very chill. I've never seen him mad a day in my life. Not that I'm super, super close with him, but I just can't picture the guy mad. I don't know why, or freaking out about anything.
Yeah, or stressed out. He's just
I mean, he's been through a lot in his life, and I think like that just comes with being through a lot in your life. It's the Lord has a plan, and I trust in it type thing.
I wonder how many times he's heard that. I met a girl. I'm going to stop discerning.
I'm sure dozens.
Dozens? Hundreds, man.
Yeah.
Hundreds.
Dozens
How long has he been
hundreds.
vocation director? Like 4 years at least?
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So all through, you guys were in what, high school when you met, or college already?
So I'm 3 years older than Abraham.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm a 95 baby and he's a 98 baby.
Okay.
And we met through actually a Catholic conference that we both attended. And mine was just a spur of the moment. Hey, a friend invited me. You should go. And I was like, I don't want to go. And I ended up going, and that was like life-changing, obviously, because I met Abraham. Didn't know that I was going to marry him or even date him at the time. And then, yeah.
So he was like, I met a girl, I'm going to stop discerning. And you're like, well, we'll see how it goes.
Okay, so.
Is that how it went?
Well, okay, so I was actually dating somebody at the time.
Okay.
For a little under a year. And when I met Abraham, I was like, or I went to the conference, and it was a young adult conference. And I told the guy I was dating at the time, you know, I don't think we're supposed to, like, I don't see us getting married. And we ended up breaking up. And then a couple months later, like 3 months later, Abraham and I started talking and ended up, you know, we started dating. But I think that whole thing is like real fascinating because who would have thought that, you know, you would go to a conference dating somebody else and then you would end up meeting your future husband.
Yeah, it was, that was crazy because when we met, I was hitting on another girl, actually. Because
at that same conference.
At the conference. So
I forgot about that.
I was, so like talk about my like terrible discernment process, right? If you're discerning the priesthood, just like, I'll always tell myself, don't do this at all. Like fully be in it. But I'm so glad because I met my wife. they had adoration. Then right after that, it was they brought a DJ out, and we just like danced and had a great time, because the whole logic is, when are you the happiest, right? At a wedding. So let's make it like a wedding, because we just had the wedding feast and the mass that day and all that stuff. It was actually a Steubenville conference. It was Encounter young adults from the Steubenville conference tree, I guess. And I was hitting on that girl, and God bless that girl, who also had a boyfriend at the time. I didn't know it. I didn't know that either of them had boyfriends at the time. Mind you, I'm not Mr. Still Yo Girl, okay? But we met because of that girl.
Oh.
She went with her male friend invited her. And he also thought the same girl was cute. And she was being wing woman. And so a bunch of us were dancing in a circle, like just like a friend group, like we were having a great time. And she just comes in the group, "Hey guys, I'm Kelly." I'll never forget that. And that's how we meet. "Hey guys, I'm Kelly." And we're all young adults. We exchange Snapchats, not phone numbers. And I found out like a few weeks ago that she actually didn't want to give me like any of her contact information.
Did you know he was hitting on your friend?
Now I do. Yeah. No, the only reason, I'm like, okay, God, the only reason I had given him my contact information was because I was at U of H, and he had just transferred to U of H.
Okay.
And he was going to lead worship at a adoration night, one of the coming like adoration Tuesdays. And he knew no one. And I was like, oh, this poor guy. He doesn't know anyone. So there was a couple of us from U of H that had gone. And we're like, okay, whenever you decide to come and lead worship, whatever you decide that date, let us know, so that we can, like, you already know somebody going in, and we can all go out to eat afterwards and all of that.
Then we just, it ended up being just us going out to eat. And we talked for hours.
What did y'all take up in U of H?
So I started at U of H. I did not graduate from U of H. And so I took American Sign Language interpreting.
Oh, wow.
And then I ended up going 2 years there. And then I finished in Beaumont at Lamar University with parent-child communication, specifically with the deaf and blind community.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was going for business at U of H. And I only lasted probably about a semester or two. And I was getting bored. And this is a telltale sign of I probably should have stayed doing what I was doing. I was falling asleep in the beginner business classes and like making A's. And I was just like, I need a challenge. And I've always wanted to be a musician and worship leader.
Okay.
So I went from that. I was just like, I don't want to be here. I just don't desire this. So how can I grow in music? How can I do that? And kind of like, yeah. And so I looked into the University of St. Thomas, left U of H, went to St. Thomas, lasted at St. Thomas for about 2 years. And
taking up music.
Taking up music as a vocal major.
Okay.
And then...
that's what my son's doing right now.
Yeah. Well, and then I dropped out. So I never finished any degree. So I'm degreeless. But St. Thomas, I was just there leading a worship night a week or two ago. And they were like, "You're still alumni. We're still claiming you." I'm like, I didn't finish anything. I didn't put in the work, man. You can't give me that.
You're there for 2 years, though.
I was there for 2 years. I went to college for 4 years because I went to community college before U of H. So I've gone to school for 4 years. I just have not finished credits for a degree.
Needs like 4 more credits. I was like, just
That's
go.
it?
No, it's not 4 more.
Like 6, something like that.
I think it's more. I don't know. I didn't pay attention, obviously. So who knows?
Nowadays, you can take those online.
Yeah.
You're just too busy now with all that you have going on.
Yeah, we have a lot going on. We do. So, which is a good thing. It's really good.
So when did youth ministry come into the picture for y'all?
I have always wanted to do youth ministry to some degree. I just wanted to do it with special needs. And so I went to school specifically saying, I'm going to get a degree with special needs because that's a part of our youth that aren't really served in a certain way.
Yes.
There's a barrier there for sure.
Yeah.
And actually, our goddaughter is now hard of hearing. She was born hard of hearing. She signs. And so I was like, okay, God, like that was part of the plan was to learn sign language for her, right? She's about to be 3 or 4. And so I went into school knowing that's what I wanted to do, graduated, or actually during school, I ended up helping our youth minister at Sacred Heart. James Carrasco, and loved it. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is definitely like what I want to do. And then graduated and ended up doing like being a middle school youth minister for the Fort Worth Diocese, and loved it. The only thing I wish I would have done more, and I still can do, is youth ministry, but like really develop a really good program for our like special needs students.
Oh my gosh, that's close to my heart. I'm a special ed teacher. So
are you really?
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, it's very close to ours too. Yeah, I have like a lot of cousins on the autism spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. And I actually ended up working at Children's Center for Autism for a year, which was really cool before Kelly and I even met and knew each other. And then so we kind of both have a heart for that in our own regard.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. So we love that.
So when did youth ministry come into the picture for you?
For me, it was in high school. I had my conversion in high school. I say I came to Jesus as a Protestant. Just like one day in my room, I just gave God my life. I was suicidal at the time, so I was like, God, like it's done today. Unless you like, what did I say? It was like, unless you like give me friends, because I was longing for friendships. I was switching schools. I had some really bad friendships in my freshman year of high school. And that day there was one kid just randomly, he just introduced me to everybody in the school. Because I switched to a small Christian private school. And it was like our graduating class was like 40 people. So he introduced me like everybody. He took me, he said, come here.
Wow.
I didn't ask. He said, you're new, I got you. And then that night I was like, okay, God, you have me for the rest of my life. And then a few months later, that was my sophomore year of high school, and we confirmed in sophomore year, earliest in the Archdiocese of Galveston, Houston, right? So it was my confirmation retreat. And I was super into like, again, music and worship, and that's where I was starting to get into at the time. So one of my early mentors, who's now a great friend of mine, his name is Will Hickel, and my youth minister at the time, Rebecca Jankowski, out at St. Angela Merici, they just took me under the wing. I was just this kid with a lot of energy, really excited for Jesus. And I was just like, okay, this is where I want to stay Catholic.
Do you still keep in contact with the guy who introduced you? Do you still know him?
Yeah. He owns the record label I'm signed with. And like, yeah, no, he's a really good friend. I talk to him all the time.
But you're asking specifically about the guy at school.
Oh, the guy at school, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I haven't talked to him in years. I haven't talked to him probably since we graduated. That wasn't necessarily a friendship that
you kind of just drifted.
Yeah, it drifted for sure. Not that like if I saw him on the street, I wouldn't say hi to him, give him a big hug, and like.
Would you ever tell him?
I did.
You did?
I did tell him that. When we small Christian private school, so we went on a mission trip. They took the upperclassmen on a mission trip to the Dominican Republic, and on the roof of this house we were staying at in the middle of the Dominican Republic, I told him like, hey, like right after we graduated, this is what you did. Because he was just his heart was hurting from something else. I'm like, dude, no, you're a great guy. You actually, God worked through you to save my life.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
So
That's
like,
beautiful.
I mean, it's just one domino.
Yeah.
That just has a huge effect.
It just tells you like what your actions can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and for me, my dad was in the military, so we moved around a lot, and I've been to a lot of schools where I didn't know anyone, and that one person who does that, that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, he was the hands and feet of Christ for sure to me.
That's amazing.
Yeah, his name is Jonathan Ross.
I had never heard that. That was beautiful.
I know. All right, can we pause for a minute?
Don't cry.
So from then on, you guys were just head on into youth ministry.
Well, yeah, but I'm trying to think. When we moved to Fort Worth,
in 2021.
Yeah, in 2021.
When did y'all get married?
Oh, we got married in 2022.
On New Year's Eve in 2022.
So we moved. So Abraham got a job in the Fort Worth Diocese, and then I was like, okay, we've been dating for a while. Mom, Dad, I'm gonna try to look for a job there, and I ended up getting a job there, and Abraham moved in September.
Yeah, I got a job and moved in September of 2021. And actually, where she got a job was in parish ministry. It was the same parish.
Yeah.
They ended up needing a middle school youth minister at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they found out about Kelly and were like, we love her. We love her. I'm like, I'm going to stay out of it. I'm going to stay out of the hiring process. Y'all do your thing. And like somebody tried to come and ask me questions. I'm like, nope, I'm staying out of it. Because
what parish was this?
This was Good Shepherd in Colleyville, Texas.
Okay.
So they hired me to do AV and just hired her to do that. And we
worked at the same parish for almost 3 or 2 years.
2 years.
2-3 years.
Yeah. Yeah. We did that. And I told him I'm looking to propose to my fiance, and because when I was interviewing and asking questions and things like that of like, can I provide for a family doing this? Why are you asking those questions? You know, things like that. So I think they had that in the back of their minds as well of like, okay, they're not going to break up and we're not going to have some drama, because a few months after, she moved in November and then I proposed in January. So yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah.
And we had our engagement up there, and our family was down here in Houston, and came back to Houston, got married, and went back up there.
Did your parents ever say anything like, you're going to follow a boy to Dallas?
Oh my God. Well, my dad so my dad has all daughters, poor dad. And so he's like, boys are stinky. Boys like make you go to the hospital. They make you get sick. And so he's like, if you go there, then what am I going to do for you? Like, I can't take care of you. So I think for my dad, as like a dad to daughters, I think that was definitely like something he had to give up control, and be like, okay, she's making her own decisions. And I remember sitting on, like, we had just emptied out all of my stuff into a moving truck. And my dad, my sister, and I like sat on the floor of an empty bedroom, and like I've only seen my dad get emotional a couple of times, and that was one of them where he was just like, and he just kind of sat there and he listened to the Tarzan soundtrack, Phil Collins.
You'll be in my heart? Is that what it is? Oh my
God. And he was like, because that movie came out.
Wait, is that what happened? 'Cause I walked in like 15, 30 minutes later. I'm like, what's going on in here?
We had a moment.
Is that what happened?
Because that movie came out in 98. That was the year my sister was born. And so for him, for whatever reason, that is like his daughter soundtrack.
Okay.
That's like what we watched growing up. That is what he I think he's never told me this, but I think that's like in his head what he associates like us being younger with. And so for him to play that was like very emotional for him. But at the end of the day, come to find out, Abraham had already asked them when I, like right after I'd moved, like to marry me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So she moved in November, and I came down a day or two earlier than her for Thanksgiving. And we were sharing each other's location because we had nobody else in DFW, Dallas, Fort Worth. And yeah, I turned off my location, met them at a Lupe Tortilla. And I was like, can I marry your daughter? And yeah, her dad just was like, really? And he like just smiled at me. And he started tearing up. I was like, yeah, really? And he's like, yeah, yes, you can. Both of her parents. I asked both of her parents for permission.
But at that time, how long had we been dating?
Like 3 or 4 years.
So he probably knew it was coming already.
Yeah.
Her mom definitely was more mentally prepared than her dad, 100%.
But again, I think that's like having daughters.
Did your dad think that maybe you or one of your sisters would, enter religious life, perhaps? Have I
don't know.
A sister in the family?
I don't know. That's a great question. I'm going to go home and ask him. I could not answer that. Yeah.
So he never gave you that, the nudge to discern?
No, my parents were very much like, what do you want to do? And let's help you.
Okay.
And like in a very amazing way. But also, I don't know if that was ever like talked about as like, this is really an option for you. So I don't know. Yeah, now thinking about it, I'm like, okay, I don't know if that was ever like brought up like seriously in our family. But if we had ever wanted to discern,
they would have supported.
They would have supported, absolutely.
How about you, Abraham? Do you think that you're an only child, so
yeah, I'm an only child, and
it's a little tougher for the parents.
Yeah, well, it's crazy because there's a lot of pressure. My grandfather was in the seminary on my dad's side, and my dad's parents are very, very Catholic. Like if you go to St. Benedict's in Houston, that community there, they know about Mr. and Mrs. Salas. They know about Frank and Amelia Salas.
They're the like stereotypical Hispanic grandparents. Like,
yeah, but they
like Catholic Hispanic.
They were the default people for godchildren if people couldn't find godchildren for their children's baptism. So the amount of they're the default godparents. Sorry, thank you.
For the whole community.
So they have like so many godchildren that we've never met. And it's just like there's random people at the house. So getting back to your question, the vocation desire was from my grandmother. She would talk to me like, "Oh, when you become a priest, while Kelly and I were engaged.
It happened at our wedding. Remember right before?
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm literally about to walk down the aisle. Like, what's going on? And yeah, so the desire,
but all with love.
All with love. And I'm the only Catholic grandchild on both sides. So that's kind of where the desire came from my grandmother on my dad's side. And my parents, they want grandchildren, right? And so it's just like I was kind of on my own in that sense. And I didn't really have a guide because we weren't a very catechized family, really. So like a lot of the catechesis that's been done has been kind of through my faith walk, and then my parents, especially my mom, is like, oh wait, like these are the things that like I miss out on growing up, and like this time period where I look back at like a certain generation, I'm like, oh, y'all were really lacking in catechesis and the general parish community. So it's interesting.
It is interesting.
Yeah. So vocations weren't really fostered on my side of the family. We were a lot less involved as a family.
Yeah, and something that's interesting just to note is we're both our families are the only Catholics in our extended family.
Okay.
Yeah. Other than like grandparents.
Okay.
So all the aunts and uncles and the cousins, like nobody else is Catholic.
Yeah.
So to get that from other uncles or aunts or cousins or extended family doesn't really, it's not really there.
You don't really hear them saying, hey, you should become a religious sister, or
no,
you should enter the seminary or anything like that. You don't hear that.
Quite far from it. Yeah. Like we don't, like if we don't talk really about matters of the faith. And there's been a few times where I've like been like, actually, like this is what the Catholic Church teaches type thing, at least for my family.
Just kind of a clarification of any misconceptions that your family members may have.
Yeah, exactly. Like my family very much is unchurched, I would say, quote, air quotes, right? It's just my aunts and uncles didn't really take it up. As far as the Catholic faith, though, some of them are Protestant. I'd say probably about half of my aunts and uncles are Protestant. Okay. But again, there's just I feel like a generation that lack catechesis. And they're part of it.
Now, you guys have a pretty interesting story with pregnancy.
Yeah. So baby's right here with us. 31 weeks on Monday. Yeah. So we moved to Fort Worth, and we were there for a while, and we were in our first year of marriage, and
this was a year ago now. Like
a year on the 9th of October.
Yeah, on the 9th of October from all this happening.
Yeah. And I've always, since I was 18, I've always had some kidney issues.
Okay.
So I have chronic kidney stones. So
oh, wow.
Yeah, so I've passed anywhere between like 1 to 5 a year.
Oh, wow.
So I've passed over 32 kidney stones, and I've had a few lithotripsies to like break them up. So I couldn't tell you how many my body has actually made. But I have passed 32.
You must have an incredible tolerance for pain.
That's what I've been told, but I don't think so.
Yes, she does.
Wow. I'm like, take me to the hospital, please. So that has been something I've been dealing with for over 10 years.
Okay.
And they can't find out really what's creating it because they have to catch a stone, or I have to catch a stone, and then they have to be able to do some tests on it. And I've never been able to catch one.
Okay.
Just because it is always, without a doubt, when I'm on my period. And so because of that, it doesn't allow for the medical team to do like what they need to be doing.
Okay.
So there's a bunch of like hypothetical, like, okay, this is what we think is going on, or we can test your urine or your blood, but we don't fully know. And one of the things that had been told to me like 4 years ago or 5 years ago now was, hey, you might want to change your diet and increase your fluid intake.
Okay.
And that might help. And it did. And I like drastically changed my diet and started drinking like a minimum of 1 gallon to 2 gallons of water a day.
Wow.
And I had stopped getting kidney stones for 3 years.
Okay.
Which was like huge for me. And then last October, on October 9th, I got a kidney stone. And because it had been 3 years in between my last, I was used to dealing with them at the house. But I waited too long. And so what ended up happening was Abraham was out of the house, and I was like, okay, I can deal with this. I've dealt with like dozens. But because it had been 3 years, I ended up waiting too long, and then nobody could drive me to the hospital. And I called Abraham. I was like, I need to be taken. Like, I think this is too big for me to pass. And so an ambulance came and picked me up. And so I ended up being taken by ambulance to the hospital, and it was actually the fastest stone I've ever passed in less than 90 minutes.
Okay.
It was great.
And that's 90 minutes is fast for you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
like,
boy.
That's extremely fast.
Oh, boy.
They didn't even get a chance to put, give me any pain medication.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so... Yeah, so I was like, okay, this is great. I got to the hospital, like within 20-ish minutes of being there, I passed the stone. I was like, okay, let's go home. But then 2 days later, all hell kind of broke loose. And so it started off with just my left arm started kind of like my skin started peeling, kind of like a really bad sunburn.
Okay.
And within the course of the next 2 months, we went from, they said over 75% of my body at one point was completely in hives and a rash and peeling and open wounds.
Oh, wow.
And at the time, because the only thing we could relate it to was the hospital visit, we thought it had something to do with my kidneys.
Okay.
Until December. And so we were going to doctor's appointments for my kidneys. And then 2 months later, they're like, oh, actually, like, it's not your kidneys. Your kidneys look fine.
Mind you, all our family's here in Houston.
Yeah.
So we are less than 10 months married when this happened.
And we were dealing with this while both of us were working. And there came a time when with my job, I was not able to go in. I was like, it burns. So I was like,
wow.
I could not I couldn't put anything on it.
Not even clothes.
There's a point where like clothes started making it worse.
Wow.
And then it was like, it wasn't infected, but it was like oozing. So when you would put something on it, then it would peel off the skin with it. So it was like,
wow.
Like I felt very much like a leopard from one of those stories, like from the Bible. I was like, okay, God, like, what am I supposed to learn from this? Because during that time over the course of like 8 months of being sick like that, I listened to Mass because I wasn't going to Mass at that time. I couldn't, but they read the story of the leopards, and I was like, I can relate to that like so much.
Wow.
But there came a time where my memory started getting really affected, and I had to stop working. And my parents actually came and visited us, and I was like, Mom, I want you to look at something. Like, you know how I've been complaining about this? Like, I want you to look at it. And she came and looked, and she's like, oh my gosh, Kelly, this is horrible. Like, you need to come and stay with us. And that, for me, was the moment I was like, okay, it's not just something that's going to go away, like a flu or a cold.
What did the doctors say?
Yeah, so...
They couldn't figure it out?
Yeah, so for October, November, December, we were looking at the kidneys, and they're like, no, it's not that.
Okay.
So December 20th, we came back to Houston, and we started the process of doctors here in Houston with Baylor Medical. And that is still a journey. Like, we're not going to be done with that for a while.
Okay.
So it's an ongoing process. So the week of Christmas, I was in and out of the hospital 3 times. And we were trying to figure it out. And that was like the point where I was like, this is so painful. At that point, starting in December, I don't know when, but I wasn't sleeping. So I averaged from December to March 45 minutes in a 24-hour period.
Wow.
Of sleep.
Of sleep.
Wow.
Because of the pain. And so I ended up losing a ton of weight, becoming anemic, becoming like I couldn't eat stuff. I ended up developing allergic reactions to everything. It was a miracle we didn't have to go to the hospital for an anaphylactic shock at some point. We were able to deal with that at the house. But there was lots of scares for that. I was at one point only allowed to eat 25 foods because of how inflamed the immune system was. And then certain smells. So like we couldn't use laundry detergent that was scented or like candles or perfumes, stuff like that. And it took them until March to get any answers. So from December 20th to March, we were going to doctor's appointments almost every single day.
And you're just staying at home this whole time?
Yeah.
Yeah, at her parents' house.
Yeah, and people would ask me, like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know because I'm just trying to survive. Like, I am so sick at this point. I, like, think of you having, like, a flu, but it never goes away, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. But, I mean, the symptoms aren't the same, but you're just feeling yucky, like, all day.
The lack of sleep alone.
Yeah, so...
Can I interrupt you? I want to just affirm her because it's not like she was like, I don't know. I don't even know if you remember this or not. The Hallow app, like she would, I asked her the same question and I would even wake up because we had to give her medicine in the middle of the night. She was praying the rosary all night, multiple times. I don't know who does that. She was in excruciating pain. And here's why I didn't know that is because we had to sleep in separate beds starting in November. We slept in separate beds from November until I think like
July.
Late March. No, I think it was late March, early April. Because we had started before sleeping in the same bed before the summer. So I mean, it was separate beds. Like she was on an air mattress. I was on the bed next to her, or like she was on a couch or a
Is
chair.
it because of your shifting would disrupt you?
She was in so much pain.
Oh.
She was in so much pain because again, clothes hurt her. So another person,
and rubbing skin or something like that.
Right. Yeah. And then her body heat was insane. Like imagine the middle of downtown Houston, beating sunlight, the hottest part of the day and the hottest part of the year. That's what the outer part of her skin felt like. It was like a burn victim.
So come to find out, a lot of the answers did not come until March, and they're still coming out now. Like, we're still trying to figure out things. But what ended up happening is they think that at the hospital or the ambulance that I caught a fungal infection, just like your normal, like, athlete's foot.
Okay.
And I think it was from the ambulance, personally. But because it went undiagnosed for 6 months, it spread. And then because it ended up, it wasn't just a fungal infection. It became like in January, December, I ended up getting the shingles twice. I ended up getting a staph infection twice on my neck and my face. And so things like progressed. And so what the thought is that the fungal infection is what started it. But because they never looked to test it to get easy treatment at the beginning, it just spiraled. Oh, yeah. And then the immune system just went up into flames and was like, okay, we're like allergic to everything now, and everything's gonna be like 2 times, or not even 2 times, just everything's gonna be so much worse than it is.
So how does the pregnancy come into play here?
Yeah. So so in the end of February, or at the end of February, I finally was like, I need to get my hormones checked. We haven't checked that. And so we ended up going to an OB to get my hormones checked, and found out that I had an ovarian cyst. And they're like, okay, you have 3 ways to deal with this. You can either get it surgically removed. We can give you a prescription medication to help make it smaller. Or we can just put you on a supplement and see how that goes.
So on top of all of the health issues you have, now you've got an ovarian cyst.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. So, I mean, when we sat there and like listed everything, we listed like over 12 things that have been diagnosed at the end of it. Yeah. And so we had the ovarian cyst, and they're like, there's 3 ways you can deal with it. And I was like, okay, let's try the holistic way first, because at this point, nothing medically had worked for any of the other stuff that I was like, we're going to do the holistic route for everything. And so I was put on a supplement, and he's like, okay, part of this is, and I can't remember if this was the OB or the nurse practitioner that had said, okay, every other day you're going to have to go for blood work. And so for 30 days, we went for blood work every other day.
Wow.
And then they started, and this was the nurse practitioner, started us off with 16 vials of blood drawn, or started me off, 16 vials of blood drawn. And then from there, we went every other day to start trying to like figure out a pattern or not a pattern. And then we went for an ultrasound in the middle of that to just make sure everything was good and nothing was cancerous. And so during all that month of March, we ended up getting pregnant on Good Friday and had the ultrasound on that next Monday. And come to find out later, very much later, like in June, they told us that ultrasound that they took and the tissue that we thought was endometriosis. So I do have PCOS, but they thought it was like endometriosis growth. It was actually your baby. So we actually have an ultrasound of your baby at like 3 days after conception, which is something we only see normally with IVF. So it's very rare that we see that with a natural conception.
Wow.
And because there was blood work being done every other day, we have like the blood work saying on the Saturday, so 24-ish hours later,
this is
like when your HCG levels started going up, which again is something we don't really normally see with natural conception, which was like amazing. So I've been trying to get that ultrasound of like but it's a little bit difficult because of like all the doctors we had seen.
And then so we found out on Divine Mercy Sunday, very early on, and one thing that she was told because of the cyst to keep taking pregnancy tests.
Okay.
So I had a friend who went through having chronic ovarian cysts.
Okay.
And something they had told her was take pregnancy tests regularly because it could, like, if it ever becomes positive, it could mean it has turned cancerous.
Oh.
And so that wasn't told by the OB to me. That was told by a friend who had been dealing with that, and her family dealt with that. And so something we ended up deciding to do was like, okay, we're going to take a pregnancy test once a week. On top of everything else, just because there was like so much going on, we're going to like make sure all our bases are like covered.
Yeah.
Well, Abraham was out of town. Everyone at that point, we were at my parents, we were living with my parents. And so everybody was out of town. I took a pregnancy test. It came back positive, and I called Abraham. I was like, I
was on 45 heading to Dallas. I was leading a retreat that day. Because I'm a worship leader, right? So it was so random because I had no idea she was taking this pregnancy test.
Okay.
On that day.
There was, I forget the order of these guys, but there were two religious brothers there leading the retreat. And they were asking about me. I was telling them about Kelly and all that we've been through because it was really a lot.
And you're in the middle of it at that point. Yeah.
I mean, we're still in the middle of it, but it's like I was processing, I was going through so many things. And meanwhile, I'm trying to minister to other people, mainly high school teens at this point. And they're just like, hey, we want to pray over you. So they take me in a room, and it's our retreat chapel, and Jesus is there in the tabernacle. And then this brother's like, Abraham, I don't know why, but I'm just seeing a baby's eye right now. Yeah, I'm just seeing a baby's eye. I'm like, he's like, I think, maybe it's just because, your name means great father and, spiritual fatherhood. You're being a spiritual father to all these teens.
And
little do I know, Kelly's about to take a pregnancy test, and a few hours later, and I find out while I'm driving on 45 to Dallas from that retreat, I have to pull off to the side.
Okay.
And like that's Divine Mercy Sunday.
Yeah. Which was a scary experience because then we're like, okay, are we pregnant?
Or is it cancer?
Or is it both? I think I waited until like Monday to call the OB to make an appointment. And they're like, oh yeah, well, we can't see you for like 2 weeks. So for those 2 weeks, we're like very on edge of like what's going on here. And then come to find out, we got there and like, oh, not only are you pregnant, but the ovarian cyst is completely absorbed. Like it's gone.
Oh, wow.
And so something about the hormones and all that, like the body had just absorbed it and it was completely gone. But then I dealt with, for the next 13 weeks with a blood clot in the uterus. which isn't uncommon. What we were told, but it was just like one other thing to like add to kind of like the mayhem of our year.
So what did they say? How did the cyst go away?
That it's like sometimes it just happens.
Okay.
That it just like the body absorbs it.
Okay.
Sometimes it stays.
And sometimes it stays, but we didn't have to figure out what to do if it stayed. So we don't know that part of like how we would have dealt with it. But what we were told was that the body sometimes just absorbs it when you become pregnant, because your body knows like, okay, we're going to have a baby. We need to get our stuff in order.
Well, and mind you, she's really sick. So we're freaking out.
Yeah,
because you're wondering like, how are we going to deal with this pregnancy at the same time with all these issues that you've got going on?
Yeah,
health wise.
Yeah, and plus, like, we're living with her parents. Like, I mean, our everything had gotten wrecked. All of our plans, had gotten completely wrecked. Like, our finances were wrecked because of all the medical bills and everything. Mm-hmm. Like, it was. We're trying to wrap our heads around this. And mind you, I'm a full-time like business owner and worship leader, and I had just left my job September of 2023. She got sick in October, exactly a month later.
So our plan originally was like, okay, you're gonna start the company up, we're gonna get it in place, and then in the next 2-ish years, then I'll come join you and help you with the company. And God was like, no, a month.
Wow, that must have been scary, because you're starting a business, and it's always a risk.
Yeah,
leaving the stability of
a job.
Exactly.
Of a 9-to-5 or a repair shop. Yeah. So we're trying to wrap our heads around what God, what are you doing? We're joyful of this child, but we're
terrified.
Yeah, we're absolutely terrified, because I'm like, what if Kelly dies? What if her and the baby die? What if, like, how am I going to be able to provide? Because, like, again, we're living with her parents because we have to.
Yeah.
So what, like, Lord, what are we doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And so at that time, I was still like really sick. And I think something that now is like asked to us a bunch is, okay, how did you get pregnant if you were like really, really sick?
Yeah, because they said like you probably can't conceive.
Yeah. And that to me is interesting. But yes, I was very, very sick. Absolutely. And there was a time where I was bedridden. But I had started treatment at the end of February, beginning of March, like a 3-month like intensive treatment of like diet change and all these holistic options. And I was going to go do 90 days of like holistic healing before I started taking the more serious treatments. And so I just started feeling like a little bit better, just a little bit, like enough to the point where I was like, okay, like I wasn't dreaming, and I couldn't, like, my memory had been really affected.
Of course.
And I had just started, I was like, purple. Like, that was the first color that I was able to, like, visualize again.
Wow.
And things like that. Like, I had just gotten to the point where I could go to doctor's appointments and not be in anguish, like, on the drive. So that was, like...
feeling close to normal.
Yeah. And also, like, until you're married, you don't realize how much, like, the sacrament of marriage is healing. Like, how healing it is, especially in, like, intimacy, too. And so there was, like, 6 months there where our physical relationship was non-existent. Like, we weren't even sleeping in the same vicinity. Like, we weren't, like I wasn't getting hugs, like, from anyone, like, things like that.
Yeah.
And so it finally got to the point where it was like, hey, we just need to try, like, for some type of physical relationship in our marriage, because, like, we can feel the devil, like, pushing us not to. And that, like, one time, like, a little baby was conceived, and which is, like, so amazing how God works in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like I forced anything either. Like, I want to make that very clear.
Which is interesting, because from that, like, something we've gotten a lot of is like people saying, "Oh, Abraham must have, like, forced you to do stuff," and I was like, "That's not the case." So
yeah,
because I mean, as a couple, you crave intimacy.
Yeah,
you're a husband and wife. You want that intimacy, and you know. no matter who's suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Well, but here's the thing, like pull out your ring, honey. So when I proposed to her, we had talked about her ring design for a long time. She wanted a black diamond. The black, we both have black. It symbolizes death to self in both of our rings. And then the rose gold and golden mine represents the life coming from within, dying to yourself. We're all called to die as Christ died on the cross to ourselves. Right? So,
which God told us to do.
God, like very, very fast in our young marriage, not even a year in, I got to learn what dying to myself was in a whole new way that I didn't even I wasn't mentally prepared for.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even, I wasn't even thinking about that. I wasn't even thinking about physical intimacy. I was thinking about her getting better.
Yeah.
I was thinking about ending her suffering.
But God works in mysterious ways.
Yeah.
Right? So through all that, I'm coming back to your question, but so had been really sick, baby. We ended up finding out we were pregnant. And we were told we're going to see what happens. So the only, if we miscarry or not, because of me being so sick.
So that was a real danger.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And so we were trying to get through the first trimester, and we told my sister and our parents, and that was it. And the poor parents couldn't tell anyone. And so so it was look, we're gonna let you know because we need prayers. And as parents, your prayers are gonna help us tremendously. But we don't want anybody else to know. And so we got through the first 13, 14 weeks. And then we were told, maybe wait until 20 weeks.
Okay.
Because we've gotten out of the first trimester, but we really want to get you through at least half the pregnancy. And so we went to our anatomy scan at 20 weeks. And after that, it was okay, yeah, everything looks good. If you want to tell people, you can tell people now, and you're kind of out of the clear.
Wow. So this whole time, they're all telling you, be mentally prepared to lose this baby.
Well, they're telling us not so much in those words, right? But they're just just be aware.
Okay.
Just be aware. You are really sick. You have been really sick. We don't know what's going to happen. So it's more of the we don't know. Anything can happen.
So where did you guys put your mindset in? Did you put your mindset in are we gonna kind of block ourselves off?
Yeah.
Or
we didn't actually start planning anything for baby, or even allowing ourselves to envision until 21 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. And which was, when was that? July, beginning of August, something like that.
I think it was June or July. And mind you, traveling musician, right? I had a summer camp I was playing at out of state and for a whole month. So I was gone for 4 weeks because which was terrifying. Which was so terrifying because I'm what if something happens to Kelly and the baby? I'm gonna have to fly back. And I even warned summer camp. I told the director, I was hey, I'm not telling anybody this. I'm telling this so you can be mentally prepared.
Just in case.
Just in case something happens.
Maybe have a backup plan.
Yeah. Actually, I think we were comfortable telling people that we were pregnant around June because I remember telling some of the staff.
Yeah. So around June, we had gotten the advice. So prior to 20 weeks of you really should let people know for prayers. If anything else, you need your community praying. And so after that first trimester, we let our close friends know. And I think some family, but we didn't really tell very many people until after 20 weeks. And that anatomy scan was just we could finally breathe. It was finally a point where I had started getting better. I really saw a lot of improvement in June with my health. But now we also got cleared that, okay, baby is very healthy. Very healthy. Everything is fine with the pregnancy. You're going to be okay. And it was okay, now we can actually start planning, and we can start actually talking about names, or actually picturing baby as baby in our life,
At any point, did any of the doctors or specialists say anything maybe you should consider terminating this pregnancy?
No, we have I have a Catholic OBGYN.
Okay.
Yeah, and he is amazing. And he is like really the reason why I have gotten better. Like between him and my NP, between the two of them. And I'm so glad we ended up, prior to getting pregnant, choosing a Catholic OB, because that was something that was never questioned. And that's something that was like so important to us. So no, to answer that, no, like that had never been something that was brought up to us because we had chosen a Catholic OB. But there were people in our life who had been like, you're really sick. You're really sick.
That was going to be my next question. If somebody would like kind of nudged you in that direction.
What was the question of like, you're really sick. Like, how are you pregnant and really sick? And like, you're just going to get worse. And like, what happens if this like makes you even sicker? Or like, what if you can't even deliver and it ends up putting you in a place where you're worse off or you pass away? And so like some people were getting like to the extreme and others were just like, why would you want to deal with this when you're already like dealing with a lot? But that was something that was shut down pretty fast, and it wasn't brought to us by a ton of people. It was just kind of a question of like, well, why would you even do that to yourself if you're already so sick? Like, why would you? Which is, again,
how do you answer that? What do you say?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you like right off the bat like what I would tell people because it kind of like took me by surprise every time. So I don't think you can have a really good answer when you're just like surprised, but it was something along the lines of, you know, this baby is a gift no matter what.
Yeah.
God is going to do what he desires for our family, for Abraham, for me, and for this baby. And we are going to trust in his plan and his divine will. And if this baby is only supposed to be in this womb for a couple of weeks, then we will like fall on him. If this baby is supposed to be born, we're going to fall on him. If this baby is gonna like, if I'm going to get more sick, we're going to fall on him. And it was just kind of like, whatever his plan is his plan. And we're going to trust that it is good. And we're going to just turn back to him, which is something that this whole year of being sick and then finding out we're pregnant has done. Like we have very much learned how to just trust. And that was just saying like, we're going to just trust. And sometimes you have to blindly trust and it's absolutely terrifying. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to remind each other on a day-to-day basis, especially during the difficult moments, that you just need to trust him.
Yeah. And speaking of just trusting and healing, right? Like she didn't start really drastically getting better until she got pregnant.
Really?
Yeah. Absolutely insane. Like night and day, like it is so true. This baby is like helping reset her. Like she didn't start sleeping until she got pregnant.
Really?
Yeah. So I was drastically underweight when I got pregnant. I was 95 pounds. I should have been 130 at least. So, and then I was like, just to give you kind of perspective of like how baby's healing, right? So in one way, I like was able to put on weight back to a place where I was no longer anemic, which was great. And then I was able to like be hungry again because of being sick and having all these food aversions and like then being afraid I was going to go into anaphylactic shock. I kind of had this weird thing with food. But now I was pregnant, I was hungry. So I was like, I was able to gain this weight. And then we didn't find out this till like June. So that the baby had been healing me through the gut microbiome and the stem cells. And this to me is just absolutely fascinating.
So this is what the doctors told you?
Yeah. Yeah. And so,
Wow.
so this is like, bear with me here because my terminology is not the medical terminology. It's how I interpret it.
Of course.
You're right.
As a layperson.
Yeah.
Yes.
But okay, so we all have a gut microbiome, and what that is it's your like your gut, the good and the bad bacteria in your gut, right? And a baby does not have the good and the bad, right? There's just like perfect while in the womb.
What's happening? It's sterile.
Yeah,
right?
It's like a sterile environment.
Okay.
Right? So until baby is eating their own stuff separate than mom's like breast milk, their gut microbiome matches mom's. Okay, so what's happening right now while in in the womb, is babies is like perfect, and mine is all messed up, but mine is learning from babies how to correct itself. And so to the point where like now there's certain things that like I was allergic to that I'm no longer allergic to, or like one of the big things that ended up getting a candida overgrowth in my gut, so an imbalance of the good and bad bacteria. And what babies has like is like teaching my along with like diet, right, is that like let's give you the good stuff, like this is the good and this is the bad, and so learn from mine. And so my gut is learning from babies. And then on the stem cells, which is like when we were told about the gut microbiome, they're like, yeah, this does like sometimes happen. But the stem cell one, which is the one that's like stumping some of the research doctors at Baylor, are so to like, again, this is so interesting, but baby stem cells are like, baby's very healthy, right? I'm not. My stem cells are looking at baby stem cells and going, ooh, that's what we should look like. Let's try to correct. And then they try to correct, and then they don't do a good job. And then they go, okay, let's try again. And they try again, and each time it's getting a little bit better. Just a little bit. And so what's going to be fascinating about all this is seeing what happens like once baby's here.
Yeah.
But like right now, baby's gut microbiome is healing the yeast overgrowth in my gut. And then the stem cells are healing just like kind of the immune system that is really messed up right now, which is like incredible. That is just absolutely incredible to me to think of, like from such a like a young age you can like heal. Right. And like you're calling, like God is calling this baby to so much, but like right now they're just growing. They're just doing their thing. Right. They're just being they're just growing.
Being a baby. Yeah.
Being a baby. But on top of that, they're like helping me get better, which is incredible.
Wow. Imagine if you had, taken the advice of some of those people that said that, hey, maybe you shouldn't have this baby.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, when I was 20, so I'm 29 right now. So when I was 20, I was living with a guy, and I ended up getting pregnant, and I ended up at 8 weeks having an abortion. And so something and that's something that I speak about, and it's part of my testimony, and it's very hard to speak about, but it's something that I think needs to be talked about more.
Yes.
Especially in our Catholic community. When we've made a mistake and we're like, oh, okay, like, and we come to that realization. And part of this baby healing, yes, physically, is also a lot of like mental trauma and a lot of like feeling like not being able to forgive myself for a lot of things. And this pregnancy has like helped that so much. And like the parts of our marriage that are affected by that, because there is, right?
Of course.
It has like helped us start healing those parts of our marriage.
Wow.
So this baby is just, I'm like, this baby's doing so much.
The baby's got a lot on his shoulders.
Yeah. So like pray for us that when baby like comes out, like we're not like, okay, you're going to be the next pope.
Oh man, I'll just take a saint in heaven. That's all, man.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's what we can hope for our kids.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So this baby's like, whenever they get to a place where they're old enough to hear this story, they're going to hear this story. And I think it'll be fascinating to see, like, just, of course, like our marriage developing and this baby now joining our family, even now, right? But there's just already so much healing that has been done, and that is just going to continue being done.
So physically, your skin, it's back to normal now pretty much, or more or less?
Pretty much. I still have some stuff, like the fungal infection went away, but it had been accompanied, right, with like at one point with staph and shingles, and then a yeast overgrowth on the skin, and then also something called topical steroid withdrawal, where the body had become addicted to like the topical steroids.
Oh, wow.
So it went into withdrawal. So there are things that they're saying will take 2 to 5 years to fully recover.
Oh, wow.
And we're looking at 2 to 5 years from this past like March, is when I started like really doing, like changing my lifestyle, like with diet or like medications, certain treatments, things like that. But like for the most part, like I'm feeling like I can function.
Are you able to work again?
Again, God works in mysterious ways. I don't feel comfortable working for like where I don't have enough freedom to rest.
Control your own schedule.
Because the thing that's going to take the longest is my memory to heal. And that's something that I still struggle with. So you'll see that like sometimes I'm like thinking, and it's because it's just taking me longer to process information. And
because you were without sleep for how long?
Yeah.
I mean, that
months.
takes its toll on your brain.
Yeah. And they're still trying. That's a part where I haven't really gotten answers of what's going on there with like my memory. And it had been a point during that like October to really like June where I couldn't like remember how old I was, or like I'd wake up in the morning and I wasn't able to remember like where I was, and I would have to ask them, be like, why are we here? And like at my parents' house, because that's what we were staying. Like what happened to the house I grew up in? And it would take me like a while to remember those. And so that's why I was like always bringing Abraham or my mom to doctor's appointments, because I couldn't retain information, or like I was giving partial truth information and partial like I don't even know what else. And so that's the part, like now it's gotten a lot better, but it's definitely delayed. And I can feel that. And some people, like the people closest to me, like my family or Abraham, are like, yeah, we can see it. But other people are like, oh, I couldn't tell. And I'm like, well, I can tell. Like, you know, so that part, like the memory, and then the skin hasn't completely healed.
It's
but
a process.
It's a process, for sure. But like being anemic is no longer there.
So during this whole process, you know, the entire time, did you go into like any spiritual darkness?
Ooh.
Oh.
I'll answer. You want to answer? Yes and no. Okay, there was a point where, okay, how do I answer this? There was a point where I was so mad at God. So mad at God because I had zero answers. You have to know that like my first answer to any of this was March. So I went from October to March with no answers of being miserable. And so at that point, it was like, why can't you give me something? Like, just give me something to work on. Anything. And it was nothing, not anything. And in fact, we would go and get tested, and we would come back, and they're like, you look fine. We go to the hospital, and they would be like, we're sending you home. You look fine. And so there was like nothing. And there was multiple nights with Abraham or just days where I would just be crying because I was like, there's nothing. Like, where am I supposed to, like, what's the next step when you don't even know what the next step is? And so there was a time, for sure, I was just mad at him. I was mad at God for not giving me answers. I was mad at him because there was a time where we ended up being at a point where it was like, okay, we're going to stay in Houston because like we can't go back to Fort Worth. So we had to sell our house, and Abraham sold it completely by himself and moved completely by himself. And I was so mad at him, at God, for bringing us back to Houston in the way he did, because the plan was always to come back in like 3 to 5 years, but he was bringing us back in a way that was like not joyous. I was like, shouldn't this be like a joyous time? And then we were missing things. Like I felt like we missed Christmas. Like we didn't have a Christmas. Like we missed birthdays. We were missing the people around us. Like we came back and we went from a community to zero. Like even though born and raised here in Houston, as a married couple, we hadn't developed a community in Houston.
Your own community,
So we went from Fort Worth with a very established community to coming here feeling like very lonely. And so there was a time where I was just mad at God. And I'm surprised it didn't last longer, to be honest with you. But I have been in the absolute darkest place of my life. I feel like
multiple times.
but like specifically, like when I was 20, when I had made the wrong decision to get an abortion, I spent the next year in like the absolute darkest place I have ever been in my life. And so whenever I get to a dark place, I'm like, don't you remember that? Like you had severed your relationship with God through this mortal sin and you weren't turning back to him. And look how absolutely like dark and like the way the devil was able to work in my life in a way that because of that separation. And so like during this time, I would constantly like when I would allow myself, I would tell myself like, you don't want to get back there. You don't want to get back there. Like that's how dark that time was. And like you, like, look how lucky you are. Like you have family. Like you were able to move back in with your parents married because, and like you have like 4 people taking care of you.
Yeah.
Like amazing. And like you do have like the finances to take care of yourself and like people to drive you. Like you're not having to make any meals. Like I didn't have to cook. Like I had people cooking for me and all that. And it finally came a point where, like I ended up turning on the Hollow app and it like never turned off for like months. Because I was just like, I just need to have something playing a prayer in the background, even if I'm not praying it. Because it's like, I'm still like God is present and I'm still getting I'm still getting graces from those prayers. But I'm so sick that I can't say the prayers right now in the way that I had prior. So I just need to have something on at all time. And I like wasn't retaining information, but I would just have the whatever, like the rosary on or like the day's readings or something like that. And I couldn't tell you what I had just listened to.
Wow.
But I was like, okay, we just need to have this on repeat.
So for you, Abraham, seeing her go through this, did you go to a dark place? Like because of you of course, you're feeling helpless because you want to help your wife.
Yeah.
And you're seeing her suffer.
Yeah. Yeah, it hurt a lot. I couldn't even tell you what my thoughts were. I honestly think like I have a lot of like mental work to do on it and probably like need to go through therapy for it because she's not the first person in my life that something like this has happened to. Like it happened to my dad too. In 2020, like he had like over 3 strokes. Like now he's in a wheelchair and all that stuff and he can't function like a normal human being. So this was like the second person in my life, like really close to me that this happened to. And I was just like, okay, God, like I'd been through it with my dad already.
And then you're reliving it again.
Yeah, but there was a grace in it because I knew everything was going to be okay. Like my father should not be living today. When you look at, and that's a whole different story, but like when you look at everything that he went through, and everything's okay. Like it's not like he's still suffering. Like my mother is still taking care of him full time. But we got through that really, really dark time where we were those families, and Kelly was with us through it all. Like just sitting outside the window that you saw on the news outside the hospital because we couldn't be with our loved one. We got through that. So I was just like, God, I know you can get us through this, but I can't see how, but I know there's a way. And it was the same thing with our finances. And it still is like, God, I couldn't see like how we were going to pay for her medical bills or pay for like, she needs a special diet. Right. And like how we're going to be able to afford that and all that stuff. Like at points in time, like I was thinking like, do we need to file for bankruptcy? Like I'm 25 and I'm thinking about filing for bankruptcy. Right. And all these things and feeling like I have no one to turn to except our Lord. And I just felt like there's no other option but to rely. And we pick words for the year or phrases, and she's chose Talitha Kum from the Bible, which is, I'm going to paraphrase, little girl, get up and rise from Jesus, bring up, was it the scribes? I think it was the scribe's daughter. Probably wrong with that. My word was rely. And we have relied. We are still relying. When I talk about our finances, I mean, there's been times where I'm just like, I'm going to have to file for bankruptcy next month or something, or like like it's going to get more screwed up. And then the Lord's like, here's this last minute thing. Merry Christmas. Praise me. you're going to be fine. Last minute, every month, whether it's with her health, with the baby, with our finances, with like how we're going to do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Every time there has been something that has gotten us to the next place, and it has been our Lord. It's not mere coincidence at all.
Mm-hmm.
God's just throwing you a lifeline every single time you think that it's...
and I'm just like, okay, I don't want to be on the lifeline anymore, God. I'm done. I'm done with the lifeline, but obviously you have greater plans and things that we can't see. Like, I can't tell you how, like, we're full-time on our own still, with like, you know, the freelance stuff and music and all of that. I can't tell you, like, I've been okay with the possibility of quitting,
mm-hmm.
of laying it all down. So, because like there's an innate thing that men have to provide
mm-hmm.
for the family, right? You could probably speak to this as a husband and father
mm-hmm.
yourself. And the desire to provide came much more once she got pregnant, because I'm like, oh
yeah,
gosh. It's not like I'm out here living a pipe dream, right? Like I'm applying for jobs.
Yeah.
I'm not getting anywhere. And the Lord was just like, no, I still want you to do this. I'm still going to provide through this, even if you cannot see a possible way. It's going to come from a place that you possibly can't even imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that have occurred have been so magical and amazing, but there's been so much anxiety, so much hurt, so much fear, so much like even depression. Like I didn't even talk to any friends for probably about 6 months. Like, we had friends reach out, some of my best friends in the world reach out, and I just didn't respond. And I've told like one recently, I'm like, dude, I'm so sorry I haven't responded to you. I didn't respond to you during that time.
Mm-hmm.
Because like all I could think about was like, Kelly, there's so much to do. Like, we take care of her, like just dealing with stress, and trying to take care of my own mental health somehow, some way, trying to have a prayer life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh my gosh, how important is that in this? So yeah, like, talk about relying on the Lord. It's been a journey, and it still is.
Of course.
It
Something
still is.
though that's interesting to note is through all of this, right? I couldn't be there at all for Abraham.
Oh yeah, of
And
course.
he was having to be there for me. So there was like a transition time where he would come to me with like his own processing of going through all this.
Uh-huh.
And I couldn't be there.
Yeah.
And then he would like try to express how he was feeling, or like just like he needed his own like little cry session, and it was like I couldn't because of like not knowing what was going on,
Mm-hmm.
or like not being able to process it, or being in so much pain. And there would be multiple days where Abraham's like, I just need someone to hug me.
Yeah.
I just need a hug. And I couldn't even give
You couldn't
him
even
a
touch
hug.
him. Yeah.
No. And so like and so there was just friends and family that one way Abraham processed all this was like just cutting everyone off. And they got to the point where it was like, we still need people. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like, yes, like this is difficult, but we can't do it by ourselves. And we had to get to a point where we like I had to tell him, I was like, or me too. I was like, we just need to remind ourselves, like, these people still love us.
Mm-hmm.
They're still going to be here at the end of the day.
Uh-huh.
And when we have the energy, we just need to like say, hey, please pray for me today. You know?
Because sometimes you can get caught in your own head in everything that's going on with yourself that you totally forget about other people.
Oh, absolutely.
100%. Like, I talk about my dad, like, I was so zeroed in on, like, Kelly, like, I don't know. I couldn't tell you if I really had the ability to go help, because we live like 20 minutes away from my parents. They lived in Missouri City. I couldn't tell you if I like had the ability to go help more or not, but like, I can tell you I didn't really. Like, I helped maybe twice.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you know, it's really, really tough on my mom, but like, she's done her best to like be understanding of it. Like, no, you have a sick spouse too. Like, that's a level where like talk about healing that's come through this. Like, healing a relationship with my mother in a way. And just like we've gone through the same thing. Like there's a grace that came from Kelly's suffering that I got to understand my mom's suffering and taking care of her spouse.
That's amazing.
You know, and like there's a lot of like family things that I won't get into right now. From me and my parents and living as an only child that's found faith, right? But it's just like my mom's faith has grown, and I've seen that as well. And again, just that greater understanding, which I don't think I would have obtained without this situation. Wow. As terrible as it is, and I don't think I don't wish it for Kelly or anybody, because we talk about it, but you don't none of us in this room could possibly understand what she went through.
Yeah.
It was just straight like hell. It was absolute hell on earth for her.
That's amazing how you could relate with your mom and what she's going through. Wow.
Yeah, I don't even think that's something I've told her. Yeah, probably should.
Maybe she's realized it too.
Yeah.
You know? Wow.
Yeah, but again, that's where I think that level of understanding from zeroing in came into play from her. And then again, like from other men, well, there's one in particular, one of my really good friends, Bradley. He's the one that I told, like, hey, dude, I'm sorry. You reached out so many times to me. I'm so sorry. And he's like, dude, no, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. Like, if it was my wife, I would do the same thing.
Yeah.
Now, would I be more annoying than him in reaching out? Like, yeah, I would. I would have like ended up on his front door for sure, been like, hey, dude, I'm helping you today. What can I do?
Yeah.
And not that he wasn't gonna do that or anything, but like the grace that comes from good friends and understanding. It wasn't it's not a toxic friendship or anything like that.
It's tricky too as a friend. It's like, you know, I want them to know that I'm here, but I don't want to overstep.
Yes.
You know, they've got things going on, so I don't want them to have to worry about me.
Yeah.
You know, things like that.
I don't know about you, but I would get text message after text message of like, I just want to know how you're doing. I want an update, but I'm sorry. I'm like, okay, just like give me some grace if I don't reply for like 3 or 4 months, or I send it to Abraham to like reply.
And then I wouldn't.
But we had a really good support system.
Yeah,
we have a really good support system.
Yeah.
And we, like for me in particular, I had 2 or 3 women that are like 20, 30 years older than me that have really taken me under their wing and become like second moms or like older sisters in that way of like, hey, like, I haven't gone through what you're going through, but I've gone through something difficult. And I would just want you to know that I'm here for you, and them knowing how to reach out to me in that way and just text me like randomly and be like, hey, I'm praying for you. This is what like I'm praying for. Like if you have anything else, like let me know. If not, like whenever you get a chance.
Yeah.
So our like support system hasn't left us, even though like we stopped replying to them at certain
they'd
times.
Understand. I think people would understand.
And that's just so beautiful. And then it reminds me, okay, like I need to be better at that when I see somebody else, like a friend in a situation.
Right.
You know?
What would y'all say to, like, let's say there's a young couple that's going through something similar. What advice would you give them?
Take the help. Like when people offer to help you, take every ounce of help that you can. And then like for the person who's not sick, Kelly made it so clear. I felt so freaking guilty. She made it so clear you need to have one thing a day that's yours that you can decompress with. And for me, like I'm big into CrossFit and working out, and like that's just how I decompress, like outside of prayer. And even like prayer can be anxious at times, right? Read the saints. So take the help, and then like it's okay to take time away for your own mental health, because then you need to be able to recharge so you can give fully to that person that you're taking care of. This is not just for spouses. This is for caretakers in general. You absolutely need to recharge, to give fully. That doesn't mean you take a day away or whatever, but that means you can take an hour, find that one thing, or like a few hours. Like my mother-in-law and like my in-laws, they are, I cannot sing their praises enough. Like they are so gosh darn amazing. Like we still live with them and they're so graceful. Like telling me as well, go do your thing.
take care of yourself.
Take care of yourself. However you need to provide for your family, go do that. We've got you. We'll take her doctor's appointments. People rally. Like a few weeks ago, our car broke down and we had absolutely no car. And they're like, here, like we are your support system. We've got you. Like, so take the help, whoever it is.
Also, like something Abraham started we started this year. I'm like, oh, we're gonna carry that on forever. Is like, yes, we pray daily, but something he started. He was like, hey, you need to pray before you scroll. In the morning, like going through social, and that had been something when I had been sick. It was like, what am I gonna do? I'm sitting here, and I'm in so much pain, and there was a point where I couldn't. Like, I was turning on the TV. Or I was going through my social media, and I had like prayed all night or whatever, but I was still, whatever my wake up period was, even if it was 45 minutes, I would just automatically go to your like socials or something like that. And so something like that I would say is just remember to pray like first thing in the morning, and then remember to pray together, because we did not do that soon enough. We did not develop, like in the middle of the chaos, we should have taken 5 minutes, we should have taken 10 minutes or even a minute to pray together. And it took us until me starting to feel better to do that.
Oh, because you're just focused on, the sickness and everything that's going on.
The task at hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like and here's the spiritual warfare within that I understand of like Satan does not want good holy couples. He does not want good holy families. There's very much an attack on the family right now. We can all see it. It's very much like, especially like right now in October of 2024 is very much in our faces. He is going to distract. He's going to use everything to knock us off.
It just happens that ours was like a very big distraction.
So like for other people, it could be like, you got up late for work, right? But in the morning, like when I'm home, I'm working from home. So I don't necessarily have that issue unless I have a meeting or something. But you make sure you pray before. Pray first. Make it one of the first things you do. If you got to get a cup of coffee, I'm big into coffee. Get your coffee first, like to be more alert. But like have one-on-one time with the Lord, and then 2-on-1 time with your spouse. And we're very young in our marriage. There's so much we can improve on in this. Yeah. But that needs to be 100% priority. And our prayer is simple together. It's not super long. Like what we do every night, we pray night prayer together. From the Liturgy of the Hours. We pray night prayer together and with the Salve Regina, and then go to bed, right?
I think all couples, there's always room for improvement.
Yeah.
I mean, my wife and I have been together 20 years, and there's still a lot of room for improvement for us.
Yeah, but we're starting slow, and we're just building the habit and letting that grow. We're not starting with a rosary. We tried that when we were dating and fell off so quickly,
But yeah, we also have different styles of prayer. So.
100%.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
100%. So learn to merge that.
What advice would you give to friends or family of somebody who's going through it, who are watching somebody, even if it's not a couple, somebody going through this type of sickness or this type of despair?
Yeah, 2 things. 1, keep praying for them and keep reaching out to them, even when they don't reply. And then offer the help like you would for your mom. In the sense of, you can't go over every single day, right? And go like help with chores or something like that. But if your mom's sick and she's out of town and you're going to go drive, you're going to probably go pick up her groceries, right? And drop off the groceries, or offer like, what do you need at the house? Or like when you arrive there, let me do your laundry or fold the clothes, or like, let me just tidy this room up. So not just offering help and expecting them to know how they want you to help them. Because a lot of what we went through, we knew we needed help. We just didn't know like what we needed help with. Because for us, it was like, I just want to feel better. How can you help me feel better? Or we need help like financially or like sleeping or something like that. And like, you can't really help in that way.
Yeah.
But what you could do is you can like help with the small little tasks that are done throughout the day, like cooking, like cleaning dishes, like laundry, like
just one small thing that you can take off of their plate.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
Or like, okay, I can't go there in person, but I can like just text you to tell you I'm thinking about you and praying for you and letting you know I'm here whenever you want and not expecting a reply. And saying that in the text message is like, don't worry about replying. But I love you and I'm here for you. And we had a few people that would consistently, like every Friday or like every Wednesday, whatever, like text and be like, this is what I'm praying for you this week. Hope you're doing better. And I didn't reply, or Abraham didn't reply for months or weeks. And then they would finally get like one text back that was like, feeling better. This is a very brief update. Thank you. And like them being okay with that and knowing that they're okay with that. Like generally that they were
okay with that.
Yeah, they were okay. And just being there like in those ways.
What's the worst thing that somebody could do or say?
Oh gosh. That's a great question. I've never thought about that. I would say like not come in with a sense of humility. For like, sure. Or like I actually think that's one of the top ones for sure. But here's the top one. I think say I'm praying for you, not actually pray for you.
Yeah.
And here's I'll use this as an example. Some people, I still do it. I say praying for you, don't actually pray. I forget. So what I'm trying to get so much better at is when I don't text that unless I've said the prayer. Even if it's a Hail Mary or a Glory Be, I do not text that. That like I'm
like
not
that.
great about
that.
it, but
yeah.
I'm trying so hard to be better at not texting unless I've said the prayer. Or even not even, I don't even need to say I'm praying for you. I don't need that recognition from you. I don't need that thank you. This is for the other person. This is a gift of self, that prayer is. You're asking for graces for them, not for yourself.
So Kelly, I noticed that you said you were about to say something.
Yeah, I think my answer to that question, so he covered the spiritual, I'll cover the practical, like day to day, would probably be, I don't know how many times I've heard from different people as the person who is sick, like, oh, I went through this, and it wasn't that bad, or I didn't go to mass for like 8 months because I couldn't, and so like something I got a lot of was like, oh, I was sick and I was still able to go to church, or I was sick and I was still able to work, or like I was sick and I did it by myself, like without a husband.
Without asking parents for help.
And like you have it really easy because you have like your parents, like you were able to, like your husband helps you, or he works from home, or like, oh, I had to make all my meals and you don't have to make any of them. And it's like, wow. I understand that. And like, I know I have it very good. I have it very good. I don't think there's a better situation that God could have given us through this difficult time. But everyone's different, right? And it's still like, it's still painful physically. And it's like still something I wish, like, it's not comfortable. I wish I hadn't gone through it. But for people to compare their own experiences to them being sick versus me being sick, it felt like I couldn't like go through my own mourning process of like losing a dream in a way. Because like in a way, being sick for that long, there was like certain things I had to give up. And I went through my own like little mourning process of like mourning my good health, right?
Yeah.
And then everything that came with that. And I felt like when people would say that, I wasn't allowed to feel that way. That I was like, oh, I need to be grateful, and being grateful means I don't like acknowledge that something difficult is in my life, you know?
When's the baby due?
Oh man, great question.
Baby is due December 12th, which is the feast day of Our Lady of Guadalupe. And she has been all over this pregnancy. Like she just makes herself known. And so we're like, okay, how Hispanic are we? That this baby is due on December 12th. So they're trying to figure out like when baby's due because it was hard to find a due date. So it's somewhere between the 9th and the 12th. But the 9th is the feast of Juan Diego, and the 12th is the feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe. So we were like, okay, so we're just going to pick the 12th. So we tell everybody the 12th, but like actually on paper, it's somewhere between like the 9th and the 12th. Yeah. So we're going to have a little Marian baby.
Yeah, we'll have a baby for Christmas.
Yeah,
so.
well, a Christmas gift.
Yeah, I think that there's the feast the day after Divine Mercy Sunday. I forget what it is. I believe it was a Marian feast day, the Monday after Divine Mercy Sunday, which just felt so good. Just that had that was the next day to follow up.
Yeah, like all our big dates with this pregnancy, like finding out when we were pregnant, calling the doctor, like the day we called the doctor, the day we found out we were pregnant, like the due date, our baby shower, like things like that. Like all of them is like we'll realize later, oh my goodness, that's the feast of so and so.
That's fantastic.
Or whatever. Okay, he's like, Mary's got her back. Jesus got her back. So it's been like very much God has made it very, very obvious that he is very much involved in this pregnancy. And he reminds us day and day again. And sometimes we'll get a day where we forget how good he is and how blessed we are. And then he kind of slaps us in the face with something. And we're like, okay, we remember.
Yeah, well, like even the first visit to that OBGYN, which is again a Catholic, the whole office is a Catholic OBGYN office. The clinic is Caritas. There are, in some of the rooms, there are images of Our Lady pregnant. And the first room, at our first appointment ever, not even having to do with the pregnancy, Kelly's first appointment at that OBGYN.
That one.
There was a beautiful image of Our Lady of Guadalupe right there. And then the doctor, he's very much a Catholic man. He has a giblet or whatever goes on the crock, or it's like a pin or something like that of Our Lady of Guadalupe that he wears on his lanyard.
And then yesterday she reminded us about her, Our Lady came, or part of Abraham, like what Abraham does, right? We were at a conference and you're going to have to. Oh
yes. There is a lady that brought in, John, I'm going to butcher this story, but I'm going to try to tell it to the best of my abilities. John Paul II had brought in, had commissioned different copies of the Tilma.
Okay.
To be, I think, in every country. He wanted one in every country or something like that. And the one that he commissioned for the U.S. was there at the conference last night.
That we went to last night.
That we were at last night. And
meaning
it is a second-class relic of Saint Pope John Paul II. And it is was also touched and blessed by the Tilma.
And the
this
copy
is the part
of it was. I'm going to get wrong. I don't know if you could clarify this, but she said, what was about the graces?
Oh, there's something with the graces when you are blessed by the Tilma or touch the Tilma or something
about
like
the specific one. There was some type
when you
of
touch Our Lady
with it. And so she was like, yeah, I'm not, we're not doing this till tomorrow. And we were like, we're not going to be here tomorrow. And she's like, okay, we'll give you like
So she unzipped it and took it out of the casing.
Yeah.
And
so we got to pray. And so I was like,
and even I was like, Kelly, touch the baby so she touched the baby. So the baby's becoming in contact with second-class relic.
How wonderful.
In the beautiful.
So Mary and just keeps showing up.
Yep.
Throughout this pregnancy. Amazing. So we're like, okay.
Wow. Praise God.
Yeah.
Praise God. Wow. So you're back to work now completely.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm a full-time worship leader, and we own a business full-time called Life and Lens Media. We mainly do film, but we're starting to add like social media management, a little bit of animation in there as well. But I'm traveling a lot right now, leading worship. I do a lot around the Archdiocese. I recently got the huge honor, full circle thing of being the worship leader at AYC 2024. And then they were crazy enough. I tricked them, I guess, into bringing me back for 2025. I think they liked me a little bit. I'm not sure. So yeah, I get the gift of doing that again, and just so many more opportunities to go, evangelize and spread the gospel, at a lot of youth things, and just hopefully help these kids get closer to our Lord and get closer to heaven.
If anyone wants to book you for anything, how do they get in contact?
Yeah, that's a great question. You can go to my website, at theabrahamsalas.com, and go to booking, put an inquiry in. Either Kelly or I will respond to you most likely, and we'll get you on the calendar, hopefully. Dates are booking fast. So, you could also find the music on Spotify. I do have original music out there as well. And we're doing, I don't know when this is coming out, but October 13th Sunday, October 13th, we're doing a free concert with my AYC band at Christ the King in North Houston. Free for anybody to go to.
If they can't catch that, will it be on YouTube or anything?
We'll have some videos on my Instagram, social media. So everything is at the Abraham Salas.
At the Abraham Salas.
Yeah, and you'll find it.
But it's not going to be the full concert.
It won't be. We'll have clips out there and all that. But definitely, if anybody's in Houston, if you're a teen, go to AYC. We'll be there. And if you see me anywhere at a diocesan event, just hanging out, please, or see Kelly, come say hi. We'd love to, I don't know. Yeah, we just love people. We love talking to people and hearing their stories and all that.
Thank you guys so much for coming on the show and telling your story. I know, some parts must be very difficult to kind of verbalize. And we thank you for being so open and for your testimony.
Well, thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, thank you for listening and inviting us. It's a great honor. Really
Praise
is.
God.
Yeah.
Praise God.